Hey! Mr. Recap here. Today I'm going to explain the movie Ega, which was released in 2012. Sudeep, a wealthy and powerful industrialist, is introduced in the first scene in a training center. He is practicing how to shoot a firearm. Sudeep makes every shot count, impressing everyone in his path. Aditya, his business partner and friend, approaches him during the training session. Sudeep is completely unaware that the two have an important business meeting in a few minutes. Aditya requests him to be more responsible considering their client is difficult to please, but Sudeep ignores him. Instead, he seductively instructs a young woman on the opposite side of the field how to fire a shot. Bindu, a young miniature artist, creates a tiny heart, but is dissatisfied with the result. When the electricity goes out, she moves her setup to the side of the window, hoping to finish the mini sculpture in the moonlight. Nani has been her next-door neighbor for the past 2 years, and he has had a crush on her. Bindu rarely acknowledges him, but he is determined to make her fall in love with him one day. He notices her struggling to work in the dark, so he constructs a makeshift light bulb out of torch light and aluminum foil. Thanks to him, she is able to finish the sculpture. She simply closes her window and goes to sleep once she's finished. Nani's friend accuses her of being rude for not thanking him, but he claims that she closed the window to help him because if she hadn't, he would have waited for her all night. Sudeep throws an exclusive party the next day to commemorate his company's 3rd anniversary. A file is given to him as a gift by one of his clients who has been causing him problems recently. Later, Aditya is astonished by the man's readiness to sign the papers. His doubts were quickly replaced by surprise when he realized the client's wife was the same woman Sudeep had seduced back at the firearm training center. Sudeep was able to close a deal with a client by enlisting the help of his wife. Following that, the business partners go to a bar to celebrate their success with a drink. As they converse, we learn that Sudeep's wealth comes from his late wife, whom he murdered a few years ago. He has since taken over her business and is running it as his own. Bindu is a miniature artist who also runs Project 551, a non-profit organization that promotes children's education. She is at the Project 551 office, preparing to purchase books for underprivileged children, but the organization is experiencing financial difficulties. Sudeep's company is looking to support a non-profit organization, so someone suggests Bindu meets with him. When she is in his office with him, Sudeep catches a glimpse of her and is immediately drawn to her beauty. She tells him about her organization's charitable efforts, but he is too preoccupied with checking her out to listen. At the conclusion of the meeting, Sudeep surprises Bindu by handing her a check for 15 lakhs rupees. She expresses her gratitude, unaware of his true intentions. They distribute books and stationery to the underprivileged students and their neighborhood a few days later. Sudeep invited Bindu to lunch at a posh restaurant after the program. When they're ready to place their order, Nani sends Bindu a text complimenting her appearance. She looks around and notices him standing on the opposite side of the restaurant, watching her. Bindu can't take her gaze away from him and completely ignores Sudeep. The man notices her staring at someone else, which makes him feel bad about himself. Sudeep drives her home after the meal, but she stops him in the middle and says she needs to go grocery shopping. She walks away after that. Sudeep pursues her and notices that she is with Nani. He is enraged by jealousy and anger. No woman has ever been so dismissive of him. As a result, he sets out on a mission to separate Bindu and Nani. Bindu loses track of time one night and works late. When it is time for her to return home, she is terrified of walking alone. So she sends Nani a blank text, expecting him to interpret it as a sign and come to her. He receives the text and, as expected, rushes over to her. They walk home in silence. However, after Bindu enters, a white van passes by, and the occupants kidnap Nani. They are thugs appointed by Sudeep to get Nani out of Bindu's life. They drag him to an abandoned house and thrash him. Sudeep also arrives and repeatedly hits him. Nani claims that anyone who tries to harm Bindu will die at his hands when he discovers Sudeep is hitting him for Bindu. This enrages Sudeep even more, so he kills the chap. Bindu calls Nani shortly after to tell him that she loves him, but it is too late. Nani's body glows blue after a while, and the light transfers from his body to a nearby fly's egg. His body is discovered in the middle of the road the next morning, and the corrupt cops claim it was an accident. Bindu sees the body being taken away in an ambulance and is heartbroken. 10 days later, the egg struck by the strange light hatches, giving birth to a baby fly. Nanny has been reborn as an animal to exact revenge on his assailant. He doesn't remember his previous life at first and tries to flee, but his wings are stuck to his body. When he finally spreads his wings and soars into the air, he is almost drowned by the flowing water. Following that, Noni explores his new life, marveling at the floating bubbles and children running around, and he begins to play with the bubbles, popping them as they float. Nanny lands on a half-eaten apple after becoming stuck on a cricket ball. He is soon pursued by a bird, and he eventually enters a house. There, he is accidentally drowned in a mug of water by a human. Sudeep is the man holding the glass, as the fly notices. The fly suddenly remembers his past life when he sees his own face. He flies out of the drink, enraged by the revelation, and attacks his killer, but he quickly realizes that he isn't a human and he can barely harm him. Sudeep sends Nanny flying to the ground with a swab of his hand. He suddenly recalls Bindu and rushes over to her home. He is overcome with emotion when he finally sees her. He tries to attract her attention, but because he is only a tiny fly, Bindu ignores him. She then tells her sister-in-law about Nanny, saying how much she misses him. The fly is determined to get her attention after hearing this. She is in her office later that day when Sudeep comes to see her. He expresses his sorrow over Nanny's death, and makes an effort to get closer to her. Even now, the fly gets inside his ear to get him to flee, trying to protect Bindu. Sudeep then enters a wooden steam bath in the next scene. The fly gets inside his ears, and makes him move after his limbs are bound, causing the box to move. Sudeep almost collides with a sharp shower handle. He runs outside naked, making a fool of himself in front of his business partners and clients, in an attempt to kill the fly. Sudeep is later in the office when he invites Bindu to accompany him to Delhi for the benefit of the organization, and they agree to leave the next day. As a result, the fly prevents Sudeep from sleeping peacefully at night in order to prevent them from leaving. Hours pass, but he is so disturbed by the fly that he does not sleep for a second. Finally, Sudeep sleeps wrapped in a bedsheet, but only for a few minutes before Bindu calls and informs him that they must board the plane in half an hour. He rushes to the airport, but Nanny follows suit. The fly annoys the traffic cop at first, causing him to move his hand in random directions, and causing a traffic jam. Sudeep's eye is attacked when he switches cars, causing him to have an accident. Sudeep is trapped in his car seat. On the glass, the fly writes, "I will kill you with dust." The man is paranoid that the fly will come after him after he is rescued. To be safe, he keeps fly spray in his hands at all times. People around him think he has gone insane, but Sudeep stands his ground. Bindu comes to meet him, which enrages the fly. When the fly tries to attack Sudeep, Bindu sprays him with a fly repellent. He lands in a bush after falling out of the window. When the water sprinkler starts, the toxin on his body is washed away and prevents the fly from dying. Sudeep consults an entomologist to find out if flies can avenge themselves. The doctor tells him to rest because he believes he is hallucinating. Sudeep remains unconvinced and travels to the dumping ground where his car was towed after the accident. There, he meets a strange man who informs him that his fortune is about to be consumed by fire. Sudeep ignores him and searches the wreckage and finds a shattered glass that reads "kill." He now believes the fly was attempting to kill him. Nanny sees Bindu crying the next day, reminiscing about his death. He writes her a message with the teardrops on the table. When Bindu reads it, she is completely taken aback. Nanny the fly nods his head, confirming that he has been reborn, as she holds him in her palm. Nanny proceeds to tell Bindu that Sudeep killed him in order to get closer to her. In a state of shock, Bindu freezes. She trusts the fly and promises to assist him in exacting vengeance on Sudeep. Because Bindu is a miniature artist, she creates tiny glasses for the fly to protect him from fly repellent sprays. Sudeep instructs his bodyguards to search for the fly, but none of them succeed. He also quickly discovers that the repellents are ineffective against his adversary. He tries everything from fly bait to fly swatters to kill it, but none of them work. Nanny manages to set fire to his bed. He forces him to drink fly bait and refuses to let him sleep at night, but he must do something extraordinary to kill him. So, for the next few days, he decides to fill a working cannon display with gunpowder and light it at the appropriate time to kill the man. Bindu prepares a small bucket of gunpowder for Nanny, which he then pours into the cannon. They repeat this process until the cannon is completely filled. However, when a chap stuffs tissue paper into the muzzle of the cannons, the plan falls apart. Sudeep renovates his house the next day with insect-proof glasses and scanners to keep the fly out. As a result, Bindu will have to personally go to Sudeep's house and let Nani in. Sudeep tries to touch her inappropriately, but the fly digs into his skin with its modified claws, forcing him to flee. Sudeep has a crucial meeting the next day with investors who are interested in funding his upcoming project. He begins to blabber about fly repellent sprays in the middle of the presentation due to his lack of sleep and fear of flies. Nani also lands on an investor's head, causing Sudeep to throw a pot at him. They refuse to fund the project as a result of the disastrous meeting, forcing Sudeep and his company into debt. The income tax officers are then informed of all the black money Sudeep has stashed in the office. He quickly tries to get the money out so that he can stash it somewhere else, but his money is burned to ashes by the fly, leaving him nearly penniless. Sudeep suddenly recalls the man he had met at the dump sites who had told him that his fortune would soon be consumed by fire. He goes looking for him and discovers that the man is a black magic expert known as Tantra. Sudeep discovers, with Tantra's help, that the fly is Nani, who has been reborn to exact vengeance. They carry out a ritual and summon two evil birds to capture Nani. The birds chase the fly around the house, but it kills both of them. The house is filled with smoke as the glass doors close. Sudeep and Tantra are trapped in the house, but Aditya comes to their rescue. Sudeep discovers that Bindu was the one who let the fly in after reviewing the CCTV footage. He decides to use her to kill the fly now that he knows their secret. He kidnaps her and summons Nani to come out and save Bindu. Nani relents and appears in front of Sudeep. During the ensuing fight, Bindu manages to flee while Sudeep is distracted by the fly. He takes out a needle and hurls it at Sudeep's eye. Sudeep, on the other hand, uses a magnet to finally catch him. He then locates Bindu, who is hiding in a corner, and takes her hostage once more. After that, he mocks both of them while cutting off the fly's wing. Nani then notices that the paper ball that had been blocking the cannon has fallen out, allowing it to fire once more. With his last ounce of strength, the fly coats himself in gunpowder and leaps into the previously loaded cannon through the flame of a burning match. Sudeep is finally killed when the projectile passes through him. It also hits an oxygen cylinder, causing a massive explosion that burns down his entire house. In the final scene, Bindu is driving to work when she is interrupted by a man catcalling her. Nani, who has reincarnated as a fly once more, attacks him with a needle and announces his return. That's all for today. You can also watch any of the 2 videos on the screen and also like and subscribe to support the channel. Stay safe.